Hello and welcome to another Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Bryan Steele and I will be your nerd today and any other day that you watch one of my silly little shows. Well, hello there. So it is midway through December. We are almost done with 2022. Um, yeah, it's been good. Let's do a week in Bryan. Um, let's see. It was an eventful week. Work-wise, just wiggly piggly, steadily working on some Essence 20 stuff and some Warzone fiction. Um, Doing a few re-records for some audiobook files because the soundproofing in my studio is not not better than my microphone apparently, and it picked up some background noise in places. And there's a few things like some just like I'm doing right now, mispronunciations and catching on words and things that I may have missed. The the stuff that's normal for recording an audiobook. I got to go back and fix that kind of stuff. Um, Painting wise, I actually really haven't done any this week. I've been so focused on regular work and hang on, I have to sneeze. Maybe not. I guess I don't. Okay, I guess I don't. Um, yeah. So this last week was, as I mentioned in the last episode, my wife's 40th birthday. So we threw a big party on Saturday for her, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work setting everything up and getting everything squared away, and there may have been some expense, uh, but it was a good time. We had a really really good time, and in fact, after the majority of everyone kind of filtered out into the wings. Um, we went ahead and played a card game. What was it called? Anarchist puns, pun of the anarchist. I don't remember. It was something about anarchy and puns. I don't remember. But it was crazy, and it was a lot of fun. But we had a good time. It was a good party. We had a good time. For the few people who through here sent best wishes and a couple of gift cards and checked a couple of things off of the show's Amazon wish list for us. Thank you very much from our family to you, and your generosity. I'm a writer, and words are having a hard time this morning. Your generosity was well placed and well timed. It really did help to have so many cool things to open and fun things to read and stuff for Natalie at her birthday party. Um, yeah, honestly, that's really pretty much it. We played some games. We recently played Cyanide and Happiness's Master Dater game, which is a ton of fun. And if you have the Not Safe for Work expansion, whoa, it is not safe for work or some elements of home. When it says it's the naughty expansion, it is not joking. Those guys over there at Cyanide and Happiness are crazy, and they do not have limits. When they are told that they can pull out the stops, they do not have limits. I will. That's all I'm saying about that. But yeah, so we played a couple board games, a couple card games. Played the Waking Realms game, a D&D game where I'm the Capoeira Cat Monk. Um, I think we are about ready to. We beat a big monster, and I think we're about ready to uh, maybe go after the big bad. I think we might be up against the big bad. Um, And then just last night, actually, I was part of an invitation charity stream for D&D. Basically, if you remember, I did a charity for Nerd House Media and Extra Life, the Extra Life Charity Fund, about a couple months ago, or maybe about a month ago, and we raised a ton of money for the charity. Well, in the interim, through just the video on demand aspect, we've raised like almost an additional $1,500 for the charity, and we crossed a very important gap that was a session that was dedicated to all the DMs that all the game masters and dungeon masters that ran those charity events. We got to play in a game of our own in another charity stream, which was we were all playing monsters. There was a gnome-sized mind flayer. I was playing a somewhat mentally addled Flynn shaman. We had a dragon-blooded ooze and an adult oobleck. And then there was an NPC, like a little half demon thing that kind of hung out with us, and it was cute. The game master who ran it, Cujo, he did a great job of keeping it tongue in cheek. It's real easy if you're playing bad guys to go super dark and super dismal. He just kept it tongue in cheek and fun, and we were a group of misfits with the overall theme of like sticky. You'd have to see it, but we had a good time. And during the process of that game, we actually crossed the $6,000 mark of generated for this charity event. And what that brought is one of the GMs, one of the guys over at Nerd House, has a very long, like probably 3 or 4 years worth of beard, and at $6,000 generated, he is going to shave it off. So sometime soon there will be a video for Dustin over at Nerd House shaving off his massive beard, which is a big deal. That is a self-sacrifice for charity. But we crossed the path. We crossed that threshold. We got it. We had a lot of fun. It was a good time. All around. Like we just had a good time. This upcoming weekend, I've got, like I said, I think we've got the big bad ending for Waking Realms. We have the session 0 for my first non-playtest Transformers campaign that I am running here at my house. And then on Sunday we actually have my wife's D&D game, her Land of Monsters game again. So I got a lot of gaming going on this weekend, which is good. I'm glad. Yeah. So no, it's just been real solid, real good here in the land of Bryan. Yeah, so now that the week of Bryan is done, let's go ahead and get this geared up. The last time we did it, you clicked on the thumbnail, you know what's happening. The last time we did a Q&A with a gamer, we had Bill, a relatively new gamer, and in the comments section of that video, you guys asked to hear from my wife, to hear from Natalie. As a relatively newish gamer, definitely a new GM, and a spouse to an industry professional, you wanted to get some information and hear kind of some of the things that she might have to say. So we lined it up, we made it happen. She's on the other side of the house right now, getting ready to hit that button and join us. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get Natalie on here to have a Q&A with a gamer, not just any gamer, but Mrs. Professional Nerd. All right, here we go. Hello, coming from us from the far distant annals of the living room across from the other side of the house from the studio is Natalie Steele, or as I introduced her, Mrs. Professional Nerd. As I mentioned in the intro, which you have not heard, the last Q&A with the gamer was with Bill, who is one of the gamers in your long-standing game. And several people commented that they wanted to hear some stuff from you. We spoke so highly of you and your DMing and such that they wanted that they wanted to hear some stuff from you. So before we get into the actual questions itself, I always give my guests a chance to tell the world a little about you. Now, a lot of my viewers already know a lot about you because I talk about you all the time. So let's let them get a
all lies.
although I would hope not, because some of it's good. Then
Yeah, good lies.
Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am more than Mrs. Professional Nerd. Um, I am at the other end of the convention spectrum. Rather than the gaming conventions, I do the pop culture conventions when I can. I do pop culture art and like photorealistic portraits. So, and right now I'm doing more like personal commissions than pop culture art. So,
Private secret stuff that no one's allowed to know about.
yes, currently. Um, and I stay home with our pets. And I am getting really into world building my own D&D game.
Which is kind of what brought you up so often in Bill's Q&A, because he is a player in your game, I am a player in your game, and several of the fans and viewers wanted to know more about that relationship, and it built into more of a conversation about what else could possibly that entail. So I then poked you and said, let's do this interview thing. Let's make the people happy at the end of 2022. Without further ado, what do you got for me?
Well, so I guess as kind of discussed in Bill's thing, which was mentioned with Bill, I'm a new GM, which I don't know if I took on too much. Being new to gaming and all still. I kind of have a lot of questions pertaining to that. So,
Awesome.
and being married to someone who has been doing this for half of his life professionally, and you know, even an even half again, just socially, you've got way more experience in it than I do. So I have still never understood, and now I am in the muck of it. How do you deal with shenanigans? I get caught up in them a lot, but I've also found myself sitting there going, okay, we've got a limited amount of time.
Now, do you mean player shenanigans, or do you mean the characters are off doing weird stuff?
No, more player shenanigans.
Player shenanigans.
Characters, they're expected to kind of do things. So and
So,
that'll come up later. So
so I would say,
player shenanigans,
depending on
especially with new players, it's
depending on the group, sometimes shenanigans are not only expected, but it's kind of part of why the group has fun together. Um, I've been in several games with one of our very close friends. His name is Riley, and we actually used to have there'd be two start dates for every game. There were start times for every game. It was if the session was going to run from like 6 to midnight, it would be you're going to get there from 5 to midnight, and from 5 to 6 would literally be slotted as Riley time. And we would spend an hour. We would spend an hour just doing stupid things and doing movie quotes and getting Riley on his soapbox to talk about this, that, and the other thing, in order to try and get it, get it out of your system before you get into the game itself. And it generally helped if you know it's coming. If you don't know that the shenanigans are afoot, they just kind of sprout naturally. As long as the shenanigans aren't disrupting the rest of the game, like if you're dealing with a couple of players over here and they're doing their thing, and like these two folks over here are talking about World of Warcraft, or I'm painting these new minis. If they're doing their own thing, as long as it's not being disruptive to the rest of the game, or it doesn't take a few minutes to be like, oh hey, I had a thought pop in my head and I want to tell everybody about this movie trailer I just saw. Yeah, it might seem out of place, but if it only if just letting them get it out and get it done, and then all right, let's get back to the game, then that's fine. It's no different than someone being like, I need to take a bio break right now. Except their bio break, instead of it being meeting food or bathroom, it's they need to rid themselves of that errant thought, that momentary, that shenanigan, singular. They had a shenanigan and it's loaded and they had to get rid of it, because it also could, if you tell them to hold off, hey, can you wait until after the game, that might sit there depending on the person and just roll around in their head. They want to tell you, to the point where it detracts from their role play, because they're so focused on this other thing that they want to talk about. Sometimes it's almost better just to let them get it out. But you have to make sure that you're ready to step in if the shenanigans, if it has gone from shenanigan to shenanigans, that you gotta be ready to step in and go, okay, all right, rein it in. Let's do the thing. I've been in games where they've got, I don't want to say safe word, that seems really weird, but like a code word that is basically like, all right, let's get it going. I was in a convention game that what they did is it's the jazz snaps, the thing that, like, you do at a jazz club when someone that beat poetry, yeah, man. And I was sitting at the table, like two or three of them, they played together all the time, and when things started to get a little squirrely, one of them kind of raised his fingers and started doing this, and I'm like, yeah, man, what are we, like, what's the deal? And the DM knew what was going on. He's like, oh no, he's like, that's his sign that we're kind of steering off course. So as long as you're willing, and it's like with anything else, if it's done politely, you can look at your players and be like, guys, we're only here for 3 hours. Also, making sure that you hold yourself to actual time limits will help nip that in the bud, because if the players think that they can always just play a little longer, they'll squeeze in more of that shenanigans, because they'll be like, if we're not gonna end right at 8, we'll play till 8:30. It's fine. They'll keep pushing that envelope, as players are wont to do.
Sometimes you get the other end and you're like, are we done yet? When do we end? Are we done? Can we end? And it's just, then they just go off.
Yeah.
Because they just can't wait for it to be done. And it's like, well, is it really that? I thought I was kind of making the game good. And so it's either too distracted or not really into it right now, and I'm like,
Well, and
so
especially we run in the situation that we have some newer players and some at least one younger player that uh, it might benefit from shorter sessions just to kind of get them more in the swing of things. Or honestly, we've taken breaks before,
mhm.
maybe planning a longer session but with a bigger break in the middle. Um, it's
Yeah,
always
and
something.
doing the break I think helps. I think, they now that we're down to one younger player, having the two younger players I think helps, but now that we're down to the one, I think it's getting to the point where, I I have an Xbox upstairs. I have video games upstairs. Can I go soon? I would like
So what we may want to think
so.
about, what we may want to think about in those sorts of situations is plan a slightly longer break, and if they need to recharge their not playing the game battery, let them go do that. We hang out as adults, maybe play a card game of our own, break up a session with a card game, and then get back to the session and kick all the ass.
Might help.
Or role play all the ass, as the
It'll
case may
keep
be.
it'll keep the shenanigans down.
Exactly. What else do you have on your list of stuff? As I drink from Modoc's head.
Um, Considering I have one coming up in 3 days, um, session planning. Um, Writing a session that does not involve combat, that is more role playing heavy, that relies a lot on the characters and the players. So that less relies on me. So how do you go about writing a session that is less reliant on what I do
Hmm?
and is more reliant on what the characters and players do?
So I generally view every session of anything that I run like an episode of a TV show.
Mm,
Um, it has a beginning, has end credits, it's got the whole 9 yards. And just like in a TV show, you've got your main characters, but there's always going to be, not every scene is just the two of them talking. There are scenes like that, the two or three or four of them talking, but a lot of times there is the random phone call from, Uncle Bill Joe Bob, who needs to tell you about some plot stuff, or that one guy who, saunters into the diner bleeding from his multiple stab wounds. There's ways for you to listen to the role play, listen to the role play, wait for it to get like where it starts to kind of dull down or starts to leach off into we're just looking for random things to do because we're looking for random things to do.
mm.
And then you go, all right, time for a co-star, time for a walk-on appearance, time for something plot related to emerge into the situation. And even then you can't, sadly, players are players and you can't always uh, uh guarantee. You could have the guy walk into the diner bleeding from multiple holes, and you could have both your players go, can I have another refill, my waitress?
Yeah,
And you're
how do
like,
you how do you plan what to have happen if you don't know? Like, you were talking about the episodes. The writers write what those characters do. So how do you have, if they don't go to the diner, how do you have a person walk into the diner bleeding? You can't, if someone goes into, yeah, you've got, someone coming in bleeding into a scenario, but if they're somewhere where you can't have that come in, I guess without having a dozen scenarios planned each game, what's a good way to keep everybody somehow into the storyline without, like, if here's the storyline, how do you do it without going, here's 20 branches I'm planning?
So,
Try to get you back.
so I've got two answers. One is the answer that most people will want to hear, and the other is there is the realistic one. The one
What's
that
the one I
everyone
want to hear first?
the one that you would want to hear is you don't need to plan 20 things. Plan like two or three optional things
Okay.
and try and make them as setting neutral as possible. Basically, instead of it being, it has to be the guy who walks out of the pond. It has to be the guy who walks into the diner. It has to be the dude at the forge doing the thing. You take that same setting, that same person, that same idea, but you make it kind of a little bit of generic coat of paint. That bloody guy can walk into absolutely any scene. You guys having lunch in the park? He stumbles out from behind a bush. We're going to the temple. He falls out of the confessional. Like you figure out they don't have to be particularly set up for that scene. It's a little harder if it's like the blacksmith, and I want him to specifically, I want him to hurt himself at the forge, and maybe my players will come to help him. And if they come to help him, they can suddenly learn, well, yeah, I'm using subpar tools because those asshole goblins from the hills stole all my stuff. Plot point, bing. They go, oh, there's goblins with your stuff. And then he goes, yeah, and I would build, if I had my tools, I could build the best, the masterwork plate that everyone, knows me for, but I can't do it unless I have my tools. Hint,
Okay. So
hint.
instead of an integral person, have a filler person that can be placed anywhere that might lead you to the integral person.
Sometimes it's a chain of events. Sometimes you just, especially if your players are oblivious, like if they literally are just filling their day with weird stuff. Sometimes you've got to hit them with the Nerf bat or the plot hammer. You have to literally go. You hear a scream from across the street, and they go, "Okay." And if they don't, because there's also the respect to the story from the player. If they hear a scream from across the street, they are the adventurers. They should go look. They should go be interested. If you can't make them do everything, but there is definitely a certain point for as a player where you recognize the yeah. Well, it's to put it not to put it in video game terms, but like you walk past the bright glowing thing over the guy's head.
Be saving the princess.
Yes. How often are you going to stand there at the flag, not grabbing the flag because, I don't want to grab the flag. Come on, you're playing the game. The point is to move the story forward. At some point.
How many times do I watch you guys play video games without actually doing missions?
Yeah, but we are probably doing side things, other things that are still entertaining, and as long as the group is having fun, the plot can wait. That's the important thing here. As long as everybody's having a good time, but you can't just sit there and spin your wheels forever, and the players need to understand that too. That street goes both ways. We don't want the DM to railroad us, but the DM doesn't want the players just to be like, I don't care how many neon signs you put in there. I'm gonna do whatever I want to.
Yeah,
you have to. There's some give and take. The DM is a player
that actually leads to my next question is, I've been talking with you about, the DM should not be pushing the characters, like physically pushing, with insert scenarios, as a DMPC going, yeah, I literally wanted to kick your character out of the way because you wouldn't freaking move.
Yeah.
But I don't, because you have to do that on your own.
Yeah.
But so, as a DM, I can't force you guys to do things.
You shouldn't.
Anyway. I can't railroad you guys, but on the other hand, how do you get the characters not to railroad the DM? Like,
That's a good question.
I've got the new players who, I do have now two experienced players playing. So you guys do understand how, D&D and role playing works, where you do look for things, you do kind of keep an eye out for things, you do realize maybe the situations aren't always what they seem, but then you have new characters that are, or new players that are like, this is my character, this is what they do, this is what I like doing, as a player.
Yeah.
I want to do this. And so you get the players that are like, I'm going to shoot first everything.
Yeah.
Or I am the muscle, or I am, this. And how do you as a DM go, you can't freaking shoot all the time? How do you, like, I did do that in the last session, where I was like, I wrote it to plan. I am planning on you guys going into this room. You're going to witness this thing, and I am going to plan for you guys to shoot first before you ask a question. And you guys walked into it perfectly. I knew the first two characters were going to go, this doesn't look right. We're going to shoot her.
Yeah.
And you did. And it turns out you're shooting the wrong person.
Well, and those,
which was fantastic, and I planned for it because I knew those characters were going to do it.
those kinds of scenes, that do buck against the reality of, or the expected reality, that will be something that the players will learn. That the next time we run into a scene similar to that, I can guarantee that someone's going to bring that up. They're like, wait. At least, and even as players, they're like, in Natalie's game, it's not always the monster isn't always the bad guy, and that's something that the players will have to understand. If it's a player that is just basically sticking to their guns and being like, I'm going to do this thing every time, all the time, then one of the best, just like honestly with like training dogs and children, there's two ways to do it. You is either with negative reinforcement, that guy who says, I'm the muscle, I'm going to do the muscle things, I'm going to do the muscle things. When he gets blasted and knocked down into death saves in one round because he refused to play, to be the team player, then maybe he'll think that through the second time. Or there's the positive reinforcement route, where you don't reinforce the person who's got the negative behavior. You don't basically, you start setting up scenes that are, if they persist to do that sort of thing, everyone else seems to get these extra benefits. Like not mystical, magical, like, advantage on this, advantage on that, nothing like that, but more like, the guy who's like, I'm the muscle dude, I'm going to hold open the door. Like, all right, that's awesome. And he's the one that sets off the trap. And everybody else, because, Steve took point and was playing Muscle Man, everybody else go ahead and make a perception check. Why don't I get to make a perception check? Well, you're too busy holding the door open. You can kind of...
You ran full force in, you didn't stop.
Yeah. And so that's the...
And that was like the one of the previous things is, Bill's character was the tank and stood in front of everybody, and because of that took a lot of damage. So the next room, he got knocked unconscious because, he's built like a tank and has a lot of hit points, but 2 hits by the stronger guy, and he was out.
And that's that negative reinforcement, is that hopefully
the
next
time.
I
held a lot of the enemies in that encounter back, because I was sitting here going, and that was a pre-built encounter, and I didn't want all of you to die immediately, and that's a call I had to make. But
hopefully Bill, going forward, if he was put in a similar situation, he would remember yes, at the time, that was my character's thing. I can stand by this. I can do all this. But then he'll go, except there were a lot of people that were fussy about the fact that they couldn't get into the combat, and I got my butt kicked. That maybe he'll remember that. You can't always abide.
Yeah.
You can't always hope that they're going to abide by it every time.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of what finding out what a character can do and what a character should do is trial and error.
Yeah. And I think as a new player, I think it might be a slow learning process for some of the new players in the game. And it is for me as a DM. And so I'm trying to work with that. This past combat, they attacked first without realizing. And I called my I called my game Land of Monsters for a reason. Is slowly you guys are kind of realizing there's a lot of monsters in there, but they're not necessarily monsters. And some of the monsters aren't necessarily who you think they are.
Yeah.
You had a Medusa that you attacked that wasn't trying to hurt anybody. And not even you guys. You attacked her and
no, these are the things that we will, that even experienced players will have to learn about your setting, about your world building, or if you were running something out of a book that no one else has played, there's always going to be instances that whatever writer, whatever designer put that book, that adventure together, that they'll probably have some surprises in there. They'll probably have some things that aren't just exactly as it seems, or sometimes it might be the entire thing is absolutely exactly as it seems, but you are led to believe that it's not, and that's and that in and of itself is the twist. So yeah. Next question.
I guess going with some of the others is during a session, how do you, I guess, make sure things do stay on task? Or how do you stay on your toes if they do go off the rails? If you do have kind of a plan in mind that they are at least going this direction, and then your characters take a sharp left turn, how do you go, okay?
So
I'm not great at improv.
I was saying the absolute easiest answer is practice, but the more detailed answer is not to always go back to the whole TV episode thing, but how often have we been watching a show and you watch like 3 episodes in a row about this big, deep, dark meta plot, the big bad or whatever, and then suddenly there's this other episode where it starts off with a phone call, and the phone call takes them to this whole other weird thing, and so basically the beginning of the episode tells the audience, tells everyone involved, pause on the big stuff. We're going to do this Monster of the Week thing. And then at the end, there's almost always going to be something that kind of brings it back around, whether it's, they find a note, they find a clue, maybe they find an item at the end of the Monsters of the Week thing, and that item, you feed them as a DM and go, your main plot line is against this undead big bad, we'll say. Big, scary undead monster, dragon, fairy lich thing, whatever. And they do the Monster of the Week episode. And at the end of the Monster of the Week episode, one of the pieces of treasure that they find, and by episode, it could be 2 or 3 sessions. Like if that side plot thing that they've decided to go on takes them a while.
You've kind of introduced your characters through like little Monster of the Week.
And eventually eventually
season
you
one
give
event.
them, when they kind of end that sort of side plot thing, you end it with them getting that piece of equipment, and when they look at it and go, well, that's interesting, you just feed it straight away for them as a DM. You go, this kind of mace, this mace would be absolutely perfect to topple the legions of the fairy dragon dead lich guy that is raising. Like, it's used as a reminder, just like those end credit scenes where
Mhm.
we're suddenly, to use Supernatural, where Sam and Dean are suddenly reminded that there's this cult that's trying to kill off all the men of letters. Did they forget that they had the main plot going on? No, of course not.
Sometimes you thought so.
You're just, they had other things occupying their time, and that's what these side plots kind of are. You just have to remember that sometimes the player might not know when that side plot is actually ending, so you don't end it until they're kind of back turned around to where you want them to go.
How do you keep them aware that an item is important or integral?
A little harder to
Like
do.
if they're, if they're, you guys just sold, you know, a rape, some loot, and one of them was like a rapier that a our son Ace
None of us
left
needed
the
at the
group.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, our son Asa left the group, and their rapier was given to you guys. What if Asa's rapier was a super important thing? How would I have let you know? Don't sell that thing.
You honestly, you can't. It's very hard. Riley frequently tells me about this super fancy magic dagger that I threw into a pond in like season 2 of one of his games, because he told me how evil it was, and it radiated magic, and it radiated evil, and I said, nobody wants this, so I pried all the gems out of it and I threw it in a pond, and that was like one of this like major
Didn't he do
magic
that
items.
in one of our games
Yeah, he
to like
did.
get back at you? He was
Yes,
like, I'm
100%.
taking all the shit off of this, and
Absolutely. Yes.
I thought
Um,
I remembered him like peeling off everything off of a
he
scabbard.
he was referring to a troublesome situation from an earlier game. But yeah, so you can't always keep them from it, but if it's truly, truly important, you can always have it resurface. Uh, and sometimes having something like that resurface might be the reminder enough to the player characters that they go, wait a minute, why did the fates have put this in front of us again,
Hmm.
and it could be something as easy as, we fight some goblin bandits, you fight some bandits, you find some thieves, and their leaders carrying this rapier, and then in the very first part of the fight, you have everybody do a perception check, and whoever scores highest, that way make sure someone's going to get the information. Rather than setting a difficulty, you just do whoever scores highest gets the info.
Okay.
uh, and you go, oh, hey, Steve, you realize that not only is that bandit leader wielding a fancy rapier, but that's actually the exact same rapier you sold back at I mean, like not. It's got the same nicks and scratches. It has the same filigree on the handle. It's the same rapier, and the fact that you as a DM take time to point that fact out and reiterate that's going to highlight that item as more than just a rapier that we sold. Be like, and now it might cause a side plot. It might be, hey, let's find out how this guy got this back in his hand.
Okay.
And that could be as easy. And if you really want to ham up the this is an important, a faded object, the bandit guy could very well say, yeah, I woke up with this in my scabbard. I didn't know I was going to wield this today, but isn't it fancy? Like you could actually completely, put it forward as an even bigger MacGuffin than it was before, just to make sure that it's
ends back up in their hands.
That it ends back up in their hands.
I was gonna say, as a DM, you can't sit there and go, don't do that.
It tends to go poorly, and also as a player, if more than
it takes away the magic of something.
It does.
To be told that.
Well, and more than
I would assume I haven't been in a game like that, so
if more than 2 or 3 store owners just simply refuse to buy something, like, no, I don't need that rapier. Be like, but you bought all these crappy daggers and the chainmail. I don't need that rapier. And the next guy you go to and you go, you could melt it down for silver. And he's like, nah, I don't need the silver that bad, but I'll take that other thing. They'll realize that you're making sure that object stay. You're doing the video game equivalent of a quest item. I can't get rid of that. This
will never leave your pocket.
Yeah. That's it. It's a little heavy-handed.
It's a boomerang.
It's a little heavy-handed.
You at least need to throw it away.
But one of the time-tested ways to, if you've got an object that you want to be important, plotline-wise or whatever, you could also always throw a curse on it. Doesn't have to be nasty. It doesn't have to be, like if you don't get rid of it in 30 days, your hand falls off or something stupid. But it can be just to the point where, that annoying thing of every time you throw it away, the next morning it shows back up in your pack. Or something as minor as my character, I reach for my weapon, and you as the DM go, what weapon do you reach for? Or what weapon are you using? My great axe? Wrong. You're using the rapier that appeared in your you went for your great axe, and a rapier popped out, and you're like, wait, what? It could be something as little and annoying as that, but it highlights that weapon is special, and then it becomes
annoying.
And it doesn't have to be even anything bad. Like it could literally. You could have, the curse is every night when you lay back down to sleep, it ends up on your pillow with you. And you go, why am I sleeping with my sword? I don't know, but I guess I have to. There's ways, there's varying levels of heavy-handedness. And depending on the power level of the game, there's different levels of how mean do you want to be with it? Is it literally the only weapon that person can ever use? Is it a weapon that talks to them at night? There's all kinds of things, ways around it. Or you have an NPC, some sage, some bard that they meet who sees it for the first time and goes, that's the devil's toothpick, and suddenly they tell you this story about this sword that caused the ruin of the kobold nation, and it might not be anything, but it's highlighted the significance of an item, and that's the most important thing.
Okay. That wasn't even one of my questions. It came up as like how do you keep players on track, and if they get off track, how can you lead them back on? I was like, oh, that might be an interesting way, but well, I already did that one. This is a question for you, I guess, regarding playing my game.
Okay.
Do you enjoy homebrewed adventures or worlds, or do you prefer like pre-written ones more as a seasoned gamer?
So I love all games equally. They're all God's children. No, I would say that I actually, it's gonna sound a little bit of a cop out. I don't see a difference between a homebrew and playing in a specific world, like in Ravenloft, in Greyhawk, so long as you adhere to the canon that you've created. This, and my personal belief is, like, if you are playing your homebrew, then rock and roll. The gods can walk in the streets, chickens can talk, all werewolves are nice guys, whatever. That's your world. As long as it stays constant and as long as you're passionate about it, then awesome. If you're playing in Ravenloft, if you're playing in Dragonlance, if you're playing in I'm in D&D, if you're playing in a set canoned world, I want you to stay with that canon. That's where
like if you homebrew a canon world,
yes, if you
you're not a fan of that.
Notoriously, I played in a Star Wars game for exactly 2 sessions because at the end of the second session, the DM killed Luke Skywalker in the middle of like the New Hope era. Like he hadn't blown up the Death Star. He barely had like this was as if like Luke died on Tatooine before he ever got off the planet, and the game master's concept was you're taking over as the ones that are going to save everything. You're taking over as the Skywalker, the Han, those guys don't get to be part of the plot, but you do. And I told him straight away, I was like, I can't play this game. I was like, I can't do this. It wrecks my brain. And there's a lot of people who are totally fine with that. They're like, oh my God, give me an alternate universe, give me an Elseworlds. I can't.
You love Flashpoint.
No, but that is a momentary fluctuation in an otherwise greater canon situation.
Your fluctuation in Star Wars.
I know, but
you would get to be the Luke.
But I couldn't unless I was the Luke, and like so that's me. But if a homebrew is done well, I don't care what the parameters and the settings and all that kind of stuff is. I just would rather. I would rather play in something that is well thought out and well written, no matter where it's from, so long as it is well thought out and well written within the parameters of that story.
And if you don't know the story,
then if you don't know the story, the parameters are irrelevant. Then I just basically get to learn everything as we go.
All right. Well, because you've had some advice about mine.
I also,
without knowing where I'm going.
This is true. Some of that comes from experience of dealing with many players. I've been in games that have done similar-ish things or have walked certain lines, and you have to it's the number one example of this is playing an evil campaign. Where all the characters are bad guys. There's almost always going to be somebody who wants to play that Ravenloft game where we're all sinister monsters. Or for World of Darkness purposes, there's always the one that let's play a Sabbat game, which is the vampires that like full on like 30 Days of Night, we murder everything style vampires. Those types of games start off fun. They start off interesting, but then in a few sessions, it becomes a one-up of, oh, I'm going to be the one that does all the horrible things to the orphanage. You guys have to wait until the bus full of nuns comes down the street. Like it's all about, let's push that envelope a little further. I want to be more evil than you. Oh, you're evil? You think you've done bad things? And you lose the semblance of a plot. Like the DM basically goes, oh yeah, what were we doing? Evil. Like, okay, you're more evil than let's play the evil stacking game. And it just, I've seen that so many times that I've been told there are games. I've had people tell me on Twitter that we've been playing in a Sabbat game that's lasted for 2 years and it's amazing and it's deep and awesome. If they've managed to figure out that equation or whatever to create that game for them, chef's kiss. I love you for it. I've never seen it. I've never seen it done well. And that's when I'm giving advice, sometimes unsolicited.
I don't mean like the play. I mean about the stuff in my world.
Because sometimes it's opinion. Sometimes it might be opinion leaking in. And it is your world, and I will deal with things as it
You
may.
don't know what I'm throwing at you. And as
Precisely.
a player, I can't tell you. I've
Precisely.
been so close to wanting to though.
No,
Just
no,
hear like
no.
your advice and then I sit there going, I can't because I know you're the type of person that you could separate player and character,
But I'd rather not have to.
but you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You wouldn't.
I mean, if
And
you want, you can tell the fans right now. It's not like I'll ever listen to this. La la la.
no.
Totally kidding. I have to edit this video. All
Yeah.
right. Next question.
Right, we have
Oh, we have a
someone
visitor.
ready to bark.
Which visitor do we have?
He was getting ready to bark. Um, what do you enjoy most about being a GM?
Man, that's deep. What I enjoy most about being a DM is I love the look on my players' faces when some kind of plot moment happens. Whether it is a plot twist or the introduction of a character or the reintroduction of a character, like, someone that they met and they go, "Oh no, I that is my moment that I love the most is when a player something clicks, or when they've got it, like when they I might not tell them that they have that they yep, yes, you guys have figured it out, but I love seeing that and knowing that the story is going to come together. It's going, they're going to have that moment, and the realization on players' faces when they start putting those plot pieces together and seeing the bigger picture. That's my moment. That's what I love most about being a GM is seeing the story come together, no matter how simple it may be, or if it's M. Night Shyamalan level of twists, is seeing it come together in the players' faces. That's my favorite. And conversely, my least favorite is when the players are so confused and so stymied by a puzzle or by I don't know what to do. It doesn't make any sense. If they have no concept of what's going on, if they've lost all direction and they're basically just there because we have a game session Thursday night, that's when I know that I've lost them and I need to do something to I need to do something to get that story back on track, even if it is fully revamping a plot line. Like if I had a plot that I thought was going to happen, and not only is it not happening, but it's hurting the main like goal trying to get them there. If it's not integral, it's cut. It's done. If it's got cool characters in it, I might save them for something. Like if there's the Mad Goblin Bomber what bombs at midnight, I might want him in another part of the game. But if I know that if it's causing problems to the story and it's causing problems for the players to come to make to fit those pieces together, I'll dump it and just save that for a rainy day.
Okay. What do you enjoy about being in someone else's game?
I like getting to focus my attention on one character.
Okay.
Of fully fleshing out someone, giving them mannerisms, giving them culture, giving them weird things that they might do, funny voices if they've got one. I like to be able to, because as a DM, I got to do that for everybody. As a player, I can focus on just me and make that a big thing, make that a shine. Make that, I want my other players to know when I'm in character and when I'm out of character by based of just mannerisms, things I'm talking about, that sort of thing.
Yeah. You are really good at that. I enjoy seeing some of the characters you've played and just the differences you put in them. Even as a GM, like I enjoy some of the characters you do, but I like seeing the ones that you fully flesh out. Even though I'm not in a lot of the games that you are in, I like seeing a lot of the characters you do, or at least hearing about them.
it is probably my favorite thing about doing all the streaming one shots
Mm.
when I get invited to those sorts of things, because it gives you 3 to 4 hours of uh, I am gonna ham this up as much as I can because I only have this long to play them, and I love it.
You can always reuse them in other games. So.
Well, and sometimes you do. Sometimes you get recurring characters. The character I played in at Gamehole Con, Tommy says I have to bring him back.
See, I was hoping for someone like your satyr from the cruise, and I got Hardmunder, who's just super
you you
monotone.
got the exact opposite.
I got this one.
Well, because
I just wanted the weird, just insane drunk dude.
I didn't
Because
want
you
to,
were that dude in every game.
and that's why I wanted to be able to not be typecast all the time, flex my creative muscles, if you will.
But now we don't have some drunken just lout.
No, but we get conversations about naked mole rats and why they make good steeds.
That this, well, was it a naked mole rat or was it a centipede?
No,
Giant
no,
centipede.
what? It was definitely the naked mole rat because my character is not qualified for a centipede. They're far too dangerous, and I could not.
You were hoping for one.
It would be nice if I was
You were
skilled.
hoping we could afford one,
Yeah, but alas.
or that you guys could afford one. My character left.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's. I think as a player, I like to be able to focus completely on the thought process and mannerisms of a single character.
Oh,
Oh, well, hello, Barry. Everyone say hi to Barry Allen, our wonder puppy,
hi.
who apparently has decided to be involved in this video.
All right. Last question that I have is, what is your advice to new game masters like me?
Um, find your sweet spot. Find your level of comfort when it comes to how much planning is too much planning.
Mhm.
And how much improv you're willing to do. You need to and be open. The number one rule is communication with your players. Is that if you've hit a brick wall during a session, if you honestly have run out of things, there is no shame in looking at your players and saying, guys, my material has come to an end for today. I know it's a little early. We need to wrap up. Let's play something else for a little while, because you officially have gone enough off script that I need to figure what's going on. I do not want to improv this next section. Or the opposite is true, is that if you know the next like 5 rooms in a dungeon are fight, combat, no rest, combat, and it's halfway through the game session and you're like, we're not playing to midnight. You need to be able to look at your players and go, all right, this is a good stopping point. Not
You guys had the call last time.
Yeah, not do you want to stop, but this is a really good stopping point. Let's put a pin in it right now, and we'll pick up next session. Because a lot of times game masters will either get in over their head and be like, I've got 40 guys, and I don't, and each one's got hit points, and everyone's got, I got to roll all these dice and all this stuff. And if you don't take time to just take a quick breath, realize it's just a game, and then move forward, even if it happens to be at a slower pace, it happens to be at a slower pace. It's not like you have to get through this dungeon in 2 sessions. If it takes a third session, it takes a third session. If they smash through it, it only takes 1 session. Awesome. You might need to pause and figure out what you want to do for session 2, but that's as long as everybody's having a good time, there is no failure.
Yeah. My technical difficulties last time, and then I'm glad you called game last time because I'm not good at saying it's mid combat. Let's stop.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
mid combat. I sit there going, no, we need to finish.
Well, and that's
Having the technical difficulties too. I was just like, this
yeah.
is not. I'm not
Well,
used to
and
doing the digital format, and it just breaking. It was not.
that is probably one of the best things that Roll20 and Found Tabletop Foundry and all the new digital role playing like setups that are out there. I think that's probably one of the best things that have come out of that, aside from being able to play during COVID and all that kind of stuff, is you can absolutely just literally pause at the end of a round of combat and all the pieces stay put. The initiative order stays written. All the characters have got their hit points in the system, and then you just basically turn off the website, walk away. 3-4 weeks later, you come back, turn it back on, and you are right back into it exactly where you were before. That's so hard to do in a personal game, in a physical game, because everybody's got their own character sheets, everybody's got minis. Sometimes if you got a like heavy mini map style game, you've got to get to a save point kind of spot, because if you just stop mid fight, no one's going to want that set up in there. Now, unless you have like a dedicated game room where you could shut the door and that's the only game that you ever play, sure, that's fine. But nobody has that
Gaming table that you could just put the top on.
Yeah, exactly. That's the
and we had the Roll20, but apparently going from map to map, that broke it. And
the technology is not perfect.
Yeah, well, and then we only have just me on it, so that not everyone has to set up for it, but it's still just the free version too, so it's
I prefer games in person. I prefer maps on table,
which I do now have.
That's
not having the time to just draw it out and having 2 maps to do.
That's my preference. And some of that is I'm sure it's because I'm old, is because that's the way I grew up. Because I know that there are people out there that now, like on Facebook and some of the gaming groups, that are like, after COVID, I'll never go back to meeting in person. And I'm like, like that's like the whole point of these games. Except I guess as long as you're getting together, we proved during COVID that getting together on the internet did help a lot of people get through that social depression.
Well, and
it's just not the same for someone like
I got my map that morning, so having to draw it out, I already had it done, and it's pretty. Like, I like being able to do, like, Incarnate is beautiful. It's just trying to have it match up scale wise on Roll20 was that's awful. But everyone's tokens are where they're supposed to be, but without everyone having their own accounts, because everyone has their D&D Beyond accounts.
Yeah.
So why would you keep 2 separate character sheets?
Yeah, it's a thing. But I gotta say that, as long as I heard that in here, as long as as long as everybody's happy, even with technical difficulties, then you're still doing the right thing, because that's the whole point of this whole spiel, is for people to have a good time.
Yeah.
And get away from the rigors of real life for a little bit.
Yeah. I enjoy doing it. I need to spend less time planning and just more time,
or maybe not as less time planning, but planning half as detailed. You don't need to go quite so deep into the nooks and crannies of some of those plans, or keep going what you're doing because it's working. We're loving the game. So so long as it's not stressing you out, you're all right.
Well, I did tell Jackie, because she's wanting to get to a point where the more character development and role playing can happen. And I did explain to her that, you guys have done the combat a lot right now, and that's just weird. It started, to kind of explain why the characters are where they are and why they're together.
Yeah.
Um, but I was like, that's kind of like the monster of the week type of thing. I was like, and now we're going to be getting into the season, and I used supernatural as the explanation.
Yeah.
Which she hasn't seen. She's seen a couple episodes, so that wasn't really helpful. But Friends doesn't have that type of thing. So, but I was like, you guys have done like the monster of the week thing to open the door.
Yeah.
I was like, and I'm wanting to get you guys to that. Here's the season one, big bad storyline type of thing. And that's where you guys will be able to develop your characters, and then it'll be kind of setting you guys loose on that road.
Yeah.
Where it's more you guys, and I just kind of, I'll step in along the way, but it's kind of going to be you guys doing what you do and characters getting to know each other. But I think
Right.
she really wants to get to do that because it's her first time.
So,
So I don't know.
you mentioned that was your last question.
Mm-hmm.
There was a question that came up in the comment section that they wanted me to ask you.
Okay.
So,
I thought I was just asking you questions.
well, tables are turned. They wanted to know, they being the audience at large, they wanted to know what was your pros, like your number one and your least, your favorite and your least favorite thing about having the professional nerd in your game.
My favorite and least favorite thing. My favorite thing about having you in my game, your experience is very helpful. Especially having new gamers. Sorry, I'm getting comfortable. Especially having new gamers too, you get to help them wade into role playing.
Okay.
It helps them get comfortable, kind of realizing what role playing is. It's not just kind of, I guess, what reading a book is, where John does this, John says this, John, you know, sticks his sword here type of, it's not that. You are your character. You can still speak third person, but you are your character. And a lot of the times they have started using their characters' voices. They have started taking on their characters' personalities, and seeing that change is great to watch. And having you there, I've realized, has opened them up to that. Because I, especially with Jackie, like Bill is gung ho, like I want to play D&D all the time. D&D is life, you know. Jackie, I honestly did not know if she would enjoy it. I thought she was playing just because Bill's playing.
She's taken to it.
Yeah, and seeing that she actually likes playing. And she is more like the third person. Well, I guess more first person, but not so much, speaking as her character, but she's like, I'm going to do this. It instead of, you know, talking as her character, it it's still her.
Yeah.
seeing how her interacting with the other characters as her character, it's it's interesting to see that shift, and she's enjoying it, and she texts me about, I can't wait for game, and as soon as game's over and they get home, I had so much fun, can't wait for next game. it,
See, that's awesome.
it
That's
yeah,
fantastic.
and it's great because we get along on so many other levels. She's my best friend, but just knowing that this is another thing, um, and knowing that you helped bring that out with them. You brought Connor into this, and I get to ask you how how I'm doing and how you're enjoying things, and I get to pull that information in and that knowledge in. I get super worried about how I'm doing. You know me. I get super self-conscious about it. Did I do good at game? Did you enjoy it? Was I doing okay? Was the adventure okay? Was the session okay? It helps me know, it helps me get better.
Yeah.
The thing I don't enjoy about you being in my game is some of the input you have about, because my game is homebrew.
Mhm.
I am world building from scratch. This is my own world. This is my whole thing, kind of how you have your map behind you. I have made my own map, my own cities, my own characters, my own things. um some of the monsters that are in the monster manual do not interact and aren't how you would expect, not always, in my world. Some of them maybe it might not be, some I haven't decided. Some might not even be there. I don't know yet because I'm still building.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes the input that you have, we've had a conversation about, if you do this too much, it's not going to be as great for the players. And I remember having that conversation. We were talking about my Pantheon. You're like, if you have, because you're printing them for me, whether or not I want to use them, if I use one of them, I still want you printing all of them because I'm me and I can't just have one piece of a collection. I have to have the whole collection. Um, it just is. It'll irritate me to have one. Um, but you were like, if the characters come across just here's a god, here's a god, here's a god, here's a god, here's God, they're not going to be these amazing things. They're not going to be gods anymore. They're just going to be just another thing. And I sat there going, I would still find Zeus this amazing, terrible, awesome being, no matter how many times I met him. I would still be completely terrified. A, because Zeus came down as however many forms he came down as, but they're gods. They are all powerful beings. And it was that input that I just sat there going, you have no idea what any of these in my pantheon even embody.
All right. All
But
right.
the input was, it came across as you already knew what was what my world was about. And I sat there going, you have no idea. And I think you were thinking about how you would write them
It's possible.
and not how I would. So that's something that I kind of dislike about you being in my game is you do have some assumptions, I think, rolling around in your head that I think I'm gonna have to just harshly kick out. Like I think I'm
Could
gonna
be,
get
could
some of
be.
these thoughts off a cliff for you, and it's gonna hurt coming on the way down. Just
Eh, I'll learn how to fly.
some might be expected. You might be like, yeah, I thought that, but those words should not come out of your mouth.
All
But no,
right.
most of the time, I enjoy you being in my game.
That's
I
fair.
like having the knowledge there, and I like the effect that you have on the other players and the effect that you have on me as a GM.
Well, I look forward to playing. I look forward to playing in your game, and I actually I'm just as kind of interested is as time moves on and games come go the back and forth. I actually look forward in you running some stuff for other people and getting to kind of see it not as a player, not at the table, like kind of see things from afar and watch as they unfold as other players. It
As Bill invites other people into
as
my
Bill
game.
invites 700 people to your game. But
Yeah.
just in general, like even if yeah, it sounds like this upcoming year you're probably going to end up going to GaryCon without me because I've got other industrial plans that I have to deal with.
Possibly with Bill and Jackie. So
How cool would it be? I would love for you to eventually, even at some of the smaller shows, eventually maybe be able to run things for people, for complete strangers. These are the that's this is the stuff that I would love to see you eventually blossom to. You don't have to, obviously, but I was super proud of you just watching you for 25 minutes in the game that you played at GaryCon that had nothing to do with me. It is as a game as a gamer who has over decades always been that the sort of situation where either my significant other is not a gamer at all and they have nothing to do with gaming whatsoever, or they are a gamer because I met them through gaming. It is super cool to see you come into your own, especially when it has nothing to do with me. I'm not the one that's like pushing you to, hey, do this, hey, do that. You should roll dice. You're doing it because you like it, and watching you enjoy it as much as you do is awesome for someone like myself, is because I get to see that happen in real time. So thank you for bringing that to our family. So we have gone over a little bit on time, but that is just fine. People wanted to get the whole story, but we must come to a close. And
I just wanted to see Barry pop in.
where that was, we wanted to stay long enough to get one of the dogs. Every one of these I have someone end with some parting words and then tell them how to reach you if they want to.
Parting words. I don't know. Have fun gaming, and wine always goes great with D&D. Bryan does not allow drinking in his games. I welcome it wholeheartedly as long as you do not do it too much. It always helps character building.
And where can they find you if they want to send you messages?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. All of it is at Artemis Portrait, but it is portrait PORTR and the number 8. Not on a lot of the time, but that's where I'm on.
And any comments and things that you guys leave on the YouTube channel, if you specifically say that it's for Natalie, I will make sure that she gets it, and that maybe she even responds if she gets around to it. So,
it is possible.
It's
I'll
possible.
at least respond through my hubby. So he'll let you know if I don't do it directly.
All right, we are gonna say goodbye to Natalie, and then I will see you here in like 2 seconds for the exit of this video. So thank you, Natalie, so much for your time, and we will see you soon. Well, that was awesome. Some things came up that I wasn't expecting. And I hope that you learned you learned a lot from what we had to say, what she had to say, with the topics that were raised. I know I learned a little bit, and something that I will keep in mind going forward as the loving, caring spouse that I am, as well as the loving, caring gamer that I am. So next week we will be looking. I believe. Yeah, I think next week. I don't know. I don't know what's going on next week. Could be a mystery. Could be a mystery. So let's go ahead and finish on a high note. Please, 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 like, share, subscribe, ring that little bell. Tell your friends. Let's grow our subscriber base. So donate the donations that we get in for box openings and things of the sort. Let my sponsors know that we're listening. Please, 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 throw your comments in the comment section, because it's going to throw you in for the extra special Christmas comment surprise raffle. Yeah, so December's going to be real big for the show, and it's going to be because of you guys. So be safe, stay warm if you're in a cold place, stay dry if you're in a wet place, get vaccinated, wear your mask if you have to. It's getting to be flu season, you might need a double vax action. Leave every room a little happier than when you got there, and you know how it is. Play some games. See you next week.